What's going on, it's the RapNerd, and I'm here to just give my thoughts on the recent J.Cole interview for his Fall Off album with Nadeska that dropped Friday. It's out there now, so if you have not seen that, go ahead and watch that and come back here because I'm not going to splice clips and add them. I'm just going to give my take on it. So I absolutely loved this interview, and not only did it make the Fall Off album even better because he was able to go through the process of how he got here and to Disc 29 and how Disc 39, became what it was, but he also just put himself out there in a real way about the whole beef and the apology. And in my opinion, and for me, that's like made J. Cole like my favorite ever. And that's also to me made him like the realest rapper ever, because there are no people who will do what he just did with the apology for one, but there's just way more context here. And it shows that he was self-aware about all of the things that was happening in a very magnified way. Now I know people are gonna hear that and be like, you glazing, you're a J. Cole fanboy, whatever. I'm cool with that. I don't really care. Everybody's a fanboy of everything. I have a balanced enough brain to where I can step outside myself and judge things not from my own 2 feet and look at different perspectives. So I know I'm saying this from a place of a lot of reason, and I'm not just quote unquote glazing. But if you feel that way, hey, I'm not here in this video to convert you to a fan or see how I feel. Plus, I don't know why, if you are a hater of J. Cole, why you would even be on this video watching. So that's a whole different thing. But I had to put that out there just for the internet, because the internet will do what it does. You know what I mean? So anyway, the apology, right? I just love how he gave more backstory to it. So much so in a way that I think even if you had somebody else that would challenge him more, you wouldn't be able to do that. I think Nadeska was a great interviewer with the fact that she is a fan of Cole, and her questioning and everything that she asked was more interrogative about what happened and how he felt and all of that. And Cole gave it up as he would, and that's to me is what made him real, because I don't think there are a lot of rappers out there who are real enough to do exactly what he did. So he speaks about how it affected him when he made that record, thinking that like it might have been the right thing to do, and he was saying that at the time it made sense. And I can imagine he probably did that because he got caught up in fanfare and people wanting to see battles. And it makes even more sense the fact that Might Delete Later dropped, and then in a few months the Fall Off was supposed to drop out of it. So I feel like him doing 7-minute drill was probably going to be the line bridge to get to the Fall Off, which makes sense as to why in Money, Power, Respect, he says the whole scheme about trying to battle rap and get some new fans. You just put an album out and it's on the way, and him connecting this. And I think he was going to connect those two depending on how the beef was going to go, because of course I also feel like he assumed that it was just going to be a lyrical spar, nothing crazy, because in the interview he just says, and as he said before again, he didn't like the way it took shape and it went in a direction that he didn't think it was going to go, where it started becoming a malice-fueled conversation back and forth with the fans, which he also spoke about, saying, the comparisons of art needs to stop because of how, tribal it gets in battling. And I think that's what he didn't want to happen. And he even says how it weighed in on his conscience. And, he said his wife was saying, you acting different since then. And how when he told her he's going to apologize about it, that she cried because she knows how much he actually cares about Kendrick as not only an artist, but a person. And then he goes on stage and says that. And I'm like, again, super duper real with himself, because he was like, he did something loud that he didn't even believe in. And the only way to reel it back in is to show people how he really felt on an even bigger stage at his own festival. And he knew it was going to reach people. And he would rather be hated for being himself than being somebody he's not. And that is a bar and a gem. Because again, people ain't doing that. He could have easily just apologized to Kendrick himself and let the song ride and it just been out there. But the fact that he deaded the song, and he said it himself that he wanted him to hear it and the world to hear it, to know how he really felt. And that's how he wanted to be. And that just takes a very solid person to do that. And I even like how self-aware he was in an interview, talking about the world was fucking him up afterwards. Like even his homeboys there talking to him were like, yo, you a good dude, but he said it in a disgusting manner. That shit had me rolling. And everyone was just kind of like understanding but disappointed. And he even mentioned that he couldn't even escape it anywhere. He tried to go on YouTube to just watch random documentary videos, and he would see a video talking about him just throwing shots, calling him J.Cole and all this other stuff, and it was inescapable. So I do like that he added that, because I think the world before him saying that tried to paint it as this thing of like J. Cole's just living in his bubble and nothing bothers him. But clearly it does. Yet again, a real person type of energy. The fact that you letting us know that, nah, I knew this was coming, you know. I knew everything happened and it was affecting me, and it made him take a step back and go like, okay, I got the fall off ready, and this was gonna be my last album because I was tired of rapping and I'm just done with it. And that kind of retooled to be like, you wanna drop an album and disappear on a bad note? No, we can't do that. Let's do more. And that's when Disc 39 was created. And I said it on my review that there is no fall off album if you don't have both discs. I think 29 is the young rambunctious version of himself that is him at that time, but 39 is the answer to that as a grown man and an adult. And the album works because both CDs are there, regardless of which one you like more. If you took away one or the other, it wouldn't be the same album in my opinion. It wouldn't be nearly as great. But the fact that it stemmed from this moment of him getting his ass whooped by the world, thinking that like your legacy is gone and all that, it's just cool to see that instead of reacting with anger and like turning into a hermit and disappearing, he's like, nah, I'm gonna get more active, and that's what I'm gonna do. And I love that it's a through line even through the Birthday Blizzard mixtapes, because I remember hearing again Money, Power, Respect at the end of the verse where he's saying like, I thought it was all over till the niggas start crashing, something I lost passion. And I didn't know what he meant by that. I was thinking like maybe he lost motivation after the battle, you know, or he was talking about the world just kind of coming down on him and him having to pop back up. But the context there is saying like he's been working on the fall off for so long that even before the battle, he was like tired of rapping and kind of just losing the love for it. But that thing happening is what re-sparked it, because he didn't want to leave like that. You know, I still got more to say. I still feel like I'm one of the greatest despite what's happened. I want to let people know that I'm still the greatest and my pen is on fire, and I don't have to feed into that shit to prove my worthiness of an artist. And I think like that's just such a way to be, and the fact that he's freed about it in a way that Fall Off rolled out and everything happened, it was a perfect way to have gone about it, and I love that. So yet again, I saw a comment saying Cole fans should thank Kendrick for this happening, because without that moment, we wouldn't have gotten the Fall Off the way it is. And hey, I agree. Like I said, I'm a Cole fan. I'm also a Kendrick fan. And I said it before, I think Kendrick is, if not the best, one of the best hip hop artists ever, because I feel like he covers all of the textures of what hip hop and the culture is in both a digestible way and an artful, expressive way that shows the creativity of the sport and gives you all colors of the kaleidoscope of, like I said, hip hop. Ultra talented, to say the least. So I do thank Kendrick for the inspiration and putting that, you know, battery in Cole's back, both apologetically and creatively, because he knows he's like that, and I know Kendrick is like that. Hell, when Like That dropped, I was one of the people saying that Cole shouldn't respond to that, because I don't think that verse was really aimed at, you know, Cole. Yeah, he said the big three thing, but I think that you have to say the big three to break up what Drake was pulling in that record. You know, you got to crash the party. Like, if there's two folks involved, and I feel like Cole was just somebody who caught a few strays because of that, but it always was between Kendrick and Drake. So yes, shout out to King Kendrick for re-sparking that fire for Cole and giving us a masterpiece of an album. You know what I mean? And it was even dope to hear the creative process, because it, you know, he's been saying he's worked on this album for the last decade, and I always wondered what he meant by that, because I'm like, how were you working on two albums at the same time? That's crazy to me, to be, you know, having all of these albums that you're just right here working on, and then you have one in the background that you've been just mastering. And I love that he said that he was, in his mind, he was writing the Fall Off, and as he kept writing and writing, it turned to something else, and oh, this is a full project. And then he kept going, saving tracks for, you know, back then, kept going and going, thinking this is the Fall Off, and he's like, this isn't it. This is gonna be this album, and that's super dope. for him to feel. And even in the interview, it just makes sense how, you know, For Your Eyes Only and KOD came from him trying to chase the fall off because of how conceptual both projects are. And then he goes on to say that the off season and Might Delete Later were just practice because he wanted his pen to be elevated to make the fall off, which makes sense because I've said it, the fall off is his best rapping, period. And him going to, you know, doing a little side quests with his albums to get practice and craft his pen and be able to make a story the way he did, it comes with a masterful album, man. Absolutely love the creative process on that. So anyway, if you haven't seen the interview, go ahead and watch it. It's a great interview. It's about an hour long, and you get all of the Cole typicals in the interview, the boom booms, and I say all that to say, and the explaining and expression is a really good one. And we really get to hear his psyche about all of this. And at the end of the interview, you're just gonna stop and think like, you's a good dude. But nonetheless, great interview, great project, and I'm about to go listen to the fall off yet again. So let me know in the comments, have you seen the interview and what were your moments of highlights for yourself? Again, I love the apology and how he addressed it in this whole self-awareness of it when it happened and after it happened, and how it sparked his creativity and how he even got the fall off. So let me know down below, and if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace.
RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy. Instead of banking on it, now rapping is just a hobby.